So I'm just conscious of time, everyone, so we'll make a start. So thank you very much for attending today's virtual boardroom about mental health and digital wellbeing. So it's been facilitated by Marion, so I'll hand you over to Marion. I'll just make you the host, Marion.
Thank you very much. Nice to see you people. If you are comfortable to put your camera on, it's really nice to see who I'm talking to. I know some of it's their lunch, but that's fine by me. Oh, right. Just let people in at the same time now. Right, let me just start screen share. So those of you that are regulars will know the format is we sort of chat for a few minutes, or generally in the group, and then you'll go into rooms to just talk through what we've been discussing. So what I thought would be helpful is if we reviewed the recent CIPD report on mental wellbeing and digital work. And the report is an evidence review. So what they have done is looked at a lot of other research, and they were using those that were meta-analysis, which is then a review of other research. So actually the total sample size will have been very large, and then they looked at that evidence as part of their report that they released in July. So what we're going to do today is really review what the findings are saying, consider what our knowledge that we get from that can help us in our organisations, and then consider appropriate interventions. So, you know, technology, digital ways of working are part of how we now work. And I'd like to just start by thinking about how technology is a force for good in your world of work and where it is a challenge. So if I think back, and I don't really want to admit this, but if I think back to my first job, which was doing training administration for a training organisation, we used to print off information. We used to send it out to potential customers. They would phone in to make a booking. We'd write it on a log. We'd have to type up the joining instructions. And it was all totally manual. Whereas now it would be a totally different system. If I think of how I work with coaching clients now, I have a template email that's got a link to an MS form that people can fill in, which then populates a spreadsheet for me. It has a link to my diary so people can book, and it's just streamlined. So I'm not having to do the bits that would take time away from doing other things. So, you know, technology can really help us, but then there's also lots of things where it, you know, those days when you want to throw your laptop out the window or your Wi-Fi goes down at a crucial moment. So I'm going to just put you into groups to start, just to think about your individual level, where technology is really helping your role, because then we can think about how we might use it a bit more, and actually where it's creating barriers for you in your work, where it's creating stress. So how many people have we got? I'll put you into 3 rooms in the hope that people that have not got cameras on are comfortable to talk when you get into the room. I'll drop in just to check people are. So we won't do that long on that, because I want you to have more room at the end so to talk. So just 5 minutes just to think about for a minute how technology is good or not so good for you. So what sort of things were coming up in your conversations? Anybody like to share some of the conversations? Where is technology helpful for you?
We talked in our group about how it had helped us streamline things, make things easier, bring things together for you. So, for example, one of the people in the group was talking about they don't need to print as much now. They can streamline onto just having it on their system, which is a useful tool as well. I think we all thought it had brought benefits to us, having a hybrid model of working where technology became an integrated part of it. But I think that we could all see that there was some limitations to it. Some of it being more about stakeholder management, where and for new people integrated into roles in businesses, they have less of that social interaction when we're all sitting in different rooms on Teams.
Thank you. Genevieve?
to mute. So yeah, I think we were talking, so Susie was in our group and she was saying that she'd not, she would have been lost without it during the pandemic. So I think in some ways the social aspect was a big thing that it created in a way, because if we'd not had that video interaction, for example, we're talking about Zoom here, sorry, if we'd not had that video interaction, then we might have been even more isolated. So that was quite good. But then I guess similar to what Kenny was saying, we talked about not being able to switch off. So that's probably one of the issues as well, is like it's always there, and now technology can just sit in the palm of your hand as well. You know, I pretty much use my phone now more than I use my my laptop. So I'm more on my phone than I am ever before. So I think that's that from a mental health perspective as well. It can be a lot of screen time, and I don't think that's necessarily good for you.
Okay, thank you, which gives me a perfect segue into the next bit that I wanted to share about. And when we are thinking about the well-being and the health, so you know, if we're thinking about digital, our relationship with digital technology, our well-being, our work, and you know, health is the state of complete physical, mental and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease. We all have mental health. There is no health without it. It is a continuum. And if we then look at the well-being aspects, those of you that have done stuff with me before will know this is my default, my go-to model. And you know, when we're looking at how we create our level of well-being, it's how we are managing our resources to create a balance against the challenges we face. So, you know, when the challenges go up, we need to be putting more effort into replenishing our resources, whereas actually most of us tend to let that drop off, and that's when, you know, our well-being suffers. And if we think specifically about psychological well-being, and where we're then going to be looking at it in relation to technology, some of these factors, so this is the RIF model, the factors of psychological well-being, and I think if we link the sort of stress is quite often what's associated with the use of technology, and where that can work. So if we think about what we want to look at for our psychological well-being, those the ones that I think stood out for me was about autonomy and mastery. So, you know, the sense of control over our work, and the sense of having the skills to do what we needed to do. So recognizing that those elements are things that we want to be looking at. And if we now go on to look at what the report was finding, so they looked at the wider risk factors in mental well-being at work. They weren't just looking at it in relation to technology, they were looking at everything that impacted on work. And actually their review found actually very little link. At the moment, there is a lot of small, weak evidence, but no direct findings at present. And actually some conflicting findings, but actually that still gives us some really valuable information. And if we look at these main factors for work, what a lot of the research found, the effect size was quite small. So to make it meaningful here, they've used measures of how it would affect potentially days absence. So when you've got the green, that's it's having the negative impact on people's attendance, whereas the positive, it's reducing absence. And if you look back at the psychological model we've just looked at, you can see, you know, job autonomy, if people have got a sense of autonomy, has a positive impact on their psychological well-being, sense of meaning. So this is useful for us to recognise as to what is influencing it, because they've then grouped those factors into work relationship, job design and nature, and then the work related psychological things. So that gives us much more of 3 different specific areas we can think about in relation to technology. So say, if we recognise that actually there weren't, at the moment, there isn't any evidence of any association, I think that makes sense, because we've all ourselves said we can find, you know, there's lots of positives with technology, but then there can also be lots of drawbacks. So, you know, overall, it's actually about our relationship with technology, how we're using it, that is going to be the bit that is relevant. And then, stress linked to technology. We won't go all into the details of what's happened with stress. But when I started investigating a bit more in relation to this report, this is one of the academic papers that they pulled on. And I think this is I've got a new list of favourite words. I think there's some great words on this slide. So techno stress, the academics are arguing over the detail of the definition, but actually I think we get what it means, but actually I quite like the word. And if you look at that list of things, I think this is really helpful for us to then think about where there are things that we could do differently in our relationship with technology, either at an individual level or within an organisation. That sense of technical overload, things are at a high pace, speed of multitasking, expectations of response time, how that creates problems for us. The complexity, that feeling of control, actually not knowing enough about the different programs. We all tend to find a certain level of competence, but actually none of us are using any of the technology we have to the full capacity because of its complexity. But actually, where as an organisation, if we were investing more time in the learning, where do we then get benefits? Then there's the security side, that sense that, it's going to take over jobs, it's going to de-skill jobs, whereas actually we know that the job market has just changed over the years. It has the overall number of jobs in the world, in the country, hasn't reduced. It's the type of jobs. The uncertainty around it, when there's new programs and things coming in, what that's going to make. I think this is my favourite, techno invasion. It blurs the boundaries. It's in everywhere. You get a message and it can come in on 3 devices. And yeah, that one, I love that word. And then the techno unreliability, that you could have, I'm doing a training session and I can, I know what I'm doing. I've got everything set up, and then your Wi-Fi goes down. And, over time you learn to have, backup options, but, it adds stress to things that you want to find ways to try and manage. Then that human interaction, all the wellbeing models have the importance of authentic, meaningful human connections and relations. So yes, technology has reduced some of those, but how can, which, we can't actually argue, some of it has, but actually it also gives us opportunities. I think with feedback, Susie was saying how, during the lockdown, having that technology gave us the opportunity for interaction, but it's where we're not using it in a helpful way. If you think how we've developed a culture of Zoom meetings where people were booking them back to back in a diary, you weren't even giving yourself 5 minutes between meetings, whereas in the world before, you might move meeting rooms, or you'd get up and stretch, or you'd go and get a coffee, and what we're doing to ourselves from that. And then the last one is the fear of whether it's monitoring people's work, how it's the surveillance side of it. So some of that probably resonates, and hopefully that gives us some more ideas as to where technology can be causing us some challenges, but again, information to improve. So what I would like us to do is think about, so go back to the beginning, what we want in terms of well-being, the factors that we need to try and meet to support somebody's well-being. If we think about the 3 groups that the CIPD report has identified that we can address, those bits about the work relationship, the job design, the psychological aspects, and then what we've heard about the different stresses, and actually then think about what could we do. Sorry, I'm just trying to see a message. What risks can we identify? What opportunities can we identify? What actions can we take ourselves? So, when I do a lot of self-care training, and a lot of it is about habits that we've created that are not helping our own well-being, that we do have control over. So what could we do differently? But also think broader in terms of your job. What else could you do differently? What technology might you use so that you weren't repeating tedious tasks that would free you for time to do other things? And then what actions could we take as an organisation? You know, looking at all those factors and again, thinking it wider. I was just having a brief chat with in the room when some of you were in breakout rooms, and you know, what other programs, technology is there that help people? You know, neurodiversity was the thing that was mentioned. You know, there's lots of different programs and things that can help people. So what opportunities are we missing? Okay, let me put that down. And I just need to do the rooms again because we've had people coming and going. So hopefully that recreates them. How are we doing for time? Right, we'll do a 10 minutes chat on those questions. But yeah, I would encourage you to think broadly about digital work and how it can be used differently, beneficially, not a good word, to help you. All right, so let me put you into the room for 10 minutes. I'll see you back after. If you could perhaps agree on, some people are dropping out. If you can perhaps agree on somebody to feedback, that would be helpful.
Well, we were in group 2. Who was in group 1? Do you want to, Zoe or Genevieve, do you want to share what you were discussing?
Are you happy to go ahead, Genevieve? You're on mute though.
Sorry, I was saying if you wanted to go ahead, Zoe, because I spoke before, so I'm quite comfortable if you to take the group.
Okay, so I didn't get everything down, but we talked about, so first of all, Genevieve shared with us something that she uses called the Pomodoro Technique, which I think she actually uses her Fitbit, but there are other apps that you can use, and it reminds you every 25 minutes to take a 5-minute break, and you can use that to kind of get up and move around, have a screen break. So that was a great example of how technology can help you. We talked a lot around the build up of emails when when you go on holiday and you kind of de-stress, and then you start to get that stress feeling as you're coming back. And so we talked about your organization can use technology, not necessarily while you're on holiday, but for things like saying we're going to turn all emails off from 6 o'clock on a Friday evening, or Genevieve cited 7 till 7. But then we talked about how that actually causes people stress, because in the evening when their brains are working and they want to be able to just sort of get stuff out of their mind and get it down, like send the email out so that they're not thinking about it all night. The fact that you can't send it after 7 might cause them stress, so that's quite a difficult one. We talked about so Genevieve was saying about how mindfulness isn't necessarily built into digital processes. So in the old days, you might spend half an hour at the end of the day or an hour on a Friday doing all your filing, and it's kind of quite cathartic, and it gives you time to chew over what's been going on in the day, and a really although it's kind of supposed to be a mind-numbing job, it's actually quite a relaxing thing to do when you've had quite a busy day. And these days, now that we're e-filing, we don't tend to do that as much. But then we talked about how there are mindfulness apps now that allow us all to practice mindfulness and probably bring mindfulness to a lot more of us, and have made a lot more of us aware of being mindful. And companies are buying, Calm subscriptions or Headspace subscriptions, that kind of thing for their people, or in their employee assistance programs, there's apps and websites built in. And then Kenny was saying about it is really difficult over Zoom to work out which of your staff are feeling bad, which ones are having trouble, and who is in a mental health crisis, because clearly at work you sit with someone all day every day, you start to notice that their behavior is different, whereas for an hour on Zoom it's very easy to mask it. And quite often when someone is feeling like they're about to go into a mental health dip, the first reaction is to try and mask that and hide that from people, and that's been very easy for people to do over Zoom. I probably missed loads off of there as well. We had quite a lot of conversation going on. Thank you.
Lisa or Carolyn, do either of you want to share from our group? I know you missed a little bit, Tanya.
Do you want me to go? Yeah, okay. So we talked about sort of how it's quite important to ensure that you sort of shut off a little bit. So I know we spoke about, we all spoke about how it's quite easy to, if you've got for example, I've got my laptop on the dining room table. So it's quite easy as you're walking by just to sort of pop on, log on, check your emails, do some work, and what can turn into a 2-minute check often turns into a lot longer than that. So we were talking about how it's quite important maybe to have a separate office space where you can close the door and sort of try and shut off a little bit. And we talked about how working from home, how it's, you know, great with the flexibility, etc. However, being in the office, you have got that time when you drive to work and drive home from work. It's quite a nice time to reflect and sort of try and shut off from work and then walk through the door and you're home and you finish work for the day. Carolyn, is there anything else you want to add?
We're talking about using different technology for different sort of work and life, and kind of managing notifications in order to help from just things being pushed to you, actually taking charge and saying, actually, I'm going to make an effort to go find it. So it kind of reduces the amount of time that you engage, or potential for engaging with the technology when you don't mean to. I can't remember anymore. Sorry.
No, you were mentioning, Carolyn, that you don't have notifications on your phone and things like that, which helps you separate between sort of work and home and that.
Yeah. So I don't have emails on my phone or social media on my phone, because that's my personal thing, and I take calls and I use my phone as a phone. Not as an electronic computer device or mobile computer. And my laptop is work. So when work's done, I close my laptop and work's done. So it gives me that real hard distinction between work tasks and home tasks. And I'm a lot less interrupted during the evening when I can actually spend time chilling. And even if I'm thinking about emails, it's such an effort to go to my laptop and open it up and set emails. It's not worth the effort. So it really forces that home time.
Is my sound working yet?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Right. I have no idea what that is, but say Techno Stress in action. Thank you. And thank you for all that, all the comments there. One of the things that, you know, I would really encourage is for you to be thinking broader, you know, thinking about where are we missing opportunities that technology can contribute to our well-being. You know, we've had some conversation, quite a lot of it, we've gone towards the where it caused barriers, but where are we missing opportunities? I heard the comments about, you know, things like Calm, Headspace, where people have got access to that. But what other things are there, you know, particularly about the learning technology? Are we investing time, you know, getting more proficient on Excel is one of those things that's on our one day list. But actually, if we invest some time in learning in technology, how much more time would we gain? How much stress would be reduced? So there was that side of it. So the summary of the report was basically, from workplace interventions, should be looking at how we're using technology, should draw on what we know about workplace mental health to, you know, how we can use that. So how we can strengthen relationships using it, how we can use it to design jobs more effectively. And then also use it to focus on, you know, preventing that stress, using, you know, stress management training, developing problem solving skills, all those sorts of things. And actually as HR, how we can look at directly managing some of those risk factors. Thank you. Susie?
Yes, I just wanted to add in, because one of the things that we were talking about in our group is Louise and Penny, was this idea of collaborating more, the IT people to try and sort something out, and whose responsibility is it? Is it IT or is it HR? And so I was suggesting, well, wouldn't it be good if you could actually work together on it? Because I think through that you get a synergy, through that you get some learning, because IT could learn from HR and HR from IT, respectfully. And it just reduces stress. It makes it more fun, more of a coaching culture than a siloed culture. So I just wanted to add that in.
Thank you.
As a way of, you know,
how can we use technology to help us, really.
Yes, and yes, and you take that back to sort of the project management of IT implementation, how it all works together. So yeah, totally working together. So I hope that gives you some food for thought. Just as if anybody wants the full reference, that is the report. You can easily get it from the CIPD site, or if anybody requests the slides, then I'll put the link actually in them. And then that's me, if anybody wants to carry on the conversation or connect with me if we're not already connected. So I think that probably brings us, thank you, Jo, for picking that up for those few minutes in the middle. But I will pass it back to you now, so just to close.
Okay, so thanks very much everyone for attending. I hope that it's been beneficial. I'll send an email out to everybody this afternoon. The session that we've actually got running next week is a virtual mock tribunal. Now, it's actually on Wednesday and it starts at 2 o'clock and it's until 4:30. So it is quite a meaty session. But what we are saying to people is if you can't attend the session or you can't attend all the session, but you might want a copy of the recording, then if you do sign up after the tribunal, I will be sending an email out to everybody and you can respond to that email where we can then send you the details of where the recording will be posted. So if that's of interest, but you don't feel you can attend because it's quite a meaty session, then just sign up and then I can send you details of the recording. So that's it. Yeah. So thanks very much, everyone. And we'll see you soon.